everyone, it's Teresa Green with Slow Paths Wellness, and today's Mindful Monday. It's been a while since I've done a video. I've gotten a new office in that time, and lots of exciting changes have happened. And so now I come to you at a time when it seems like most things in the world around us are a little bit shaky, a little bit uncertain, maybe a whole lot uncertain. Most people have some anxiety or some volatile feelings about things. And all that uncertainty puts you on edge. It puts you in a fairly constant state of fight or flight. And when that happens, your body responds by having a stress response pretty much all the time. You may find you're having trouble sleeping, or you may find that your blood pressure's gone up a little bit, or that you've been craving more of the junk food kind of snacks, because when your body feels stressed, it craves quick calories, because it's like, if I'm going to have to run or fight somebody, I need to have glucose in my muscles so that I'm able to be strong when I need to be. And so all those things also, in addition to that, you also end up being very reactive, because your body is already hyped up with the idea of, I'm going to have to punch something, or I'm going to have to run away, or I'm going to have to protect myself from danger. And part of the body's response of protecting itself from danger is to change the way that your brain processes information, because you don't have time when you're running away from danger, or you're being attacked by a tiger or something like that. You don't have time to sit and look at all the options and think about what you want to do and how that fits in with your 5-year plan. What you need to do is run or fight. And so that's where most people's bodies right now kind of feel like they are. And so when that happens and someone says something to you and it doesn't hit quite right, then you're more likely to react to it rather than to think, I wonder what they meant by that. Or if it's obvious that they didn't mean something nice by it, maybe they're having a bad day. Or these are some things I can choose to de-escalate the situation. You tend to, in a fight or flight situation, not have those responses. You tend to have the fight or flight, or sometimes freeze, depending on what else is going on in your body, or sometimes even fawn, which is where you just do placate. You do whatever you can to make this mean person let you away, because your nervous system, that's the only way it knows how to handle things. And that can come from past history, that can come from just how you're feeling in that given moment. People who are exhausted generally are more likely to do the freeze or fawn. People who have been in abuse situations often will also do the freeze or fawn more often than the fight or flight. And sometimes just their natural personality is affected by that. So while you're feeling this reactive state, even something that's a small stressor can be much harder on you. So you know that yourself. So you know that when you're feeling good, something happens like you throw a piece of paper in the trash and you miss, and not a big deal on a good day. When everything is already bothering you and you have one last little nerve that's still functioning, and you throw something at the trash can and you miss, it can just be the straw that broke the camel's back, and you can suddenly just be in tears over it, because your body just doesn't have the margin to give yourself one more stressor, even a teeny tiny one. So what do you do about that? Well, one of the things you can do is mindfulness. Mindfulness helps a great deal, and the reason it helps is because it helps you to get more regulated emotionally. So emotional regulation is your body's ability to take a take a feeling, and to allow it to wash over you, and then to allow your mind, to allow the thought part of your body, a thought part of your brain, to evaluate that emotion and do something with it. Because in a perfect world, emotions flavor your thoughts. They don't control your thoughts, and they don't control your reactions. They flavor them. They help you to be able to think in a more nuanced way. Ironically, when you are in a stress response, they actually take away that nuance, because you get on this pendulum of all or nothing, because the brain literally changes the way it processes information when you're stressed, so that you see things as all or nothing. It's much harder to see something and to think of all the gray areas and all the different nuances of what something could do, or what something could mean, or how somebody could be presenting themselves to you. You're less likely to give grace, as they say, and think about this person. Maybe this person, had a really bad day today. You're more likely to think they're just a jerk, and I need to, get out of here, or say something smart aleck to them because they're, coming at me or something. When really that may not be the case at all, or even if it is, the peaceful response a lot of times is easier on your nervous system and easier on you than the pushback that may not be necessary or even helpful. And if it is helpful, if it's necessary, if it's a boundary you need to make, being able to do that thoughtfully, where you're responding to something that somebody does instead of reacting to it, also helps you as much as it helps just general peacefulness in the world in general. So, when we are in a constant state of stress, we become unregulated. It's harder for us to decide how we're going to respond to something, and we just react. It's like there's no moment to think in there. It's just stimulus reaction, and then a lot of times that ends up not being the best thing. We tend to react to things. We will escalate something that doesn't need to be escalated. Somebody says something that's maybe not even intended to be insulting, but sounds insulting, and you find yourself insulting them right back, or chewing on it and then being mad at, being testy with other people around you because of something that may have been a completely innocent remark. And even if it wasn't, your nervous system didn't really need to be stirred up like that over it. It wasn't important enough in your life to be able to have the response that it had. Sometimes we talk too quickly. We misinterpret things very easily, because when you're feeling threatened, you automatically take something as a threat. You know how that is, I'm sure. If you have someone that you've had conflict with in the past, and they say something that is fairly neutral, it's cloudy outside today or something like that. If you've had a lot of conflict with them in the past, you're looking for it to have some kind of underlying meaning, or some kind of little dig that you wouldn't think that about if someone that you really liked said the same thing. You would interpret it differently. And then sometimes we make decisions from adrenaline. We decide things because we're just angry, or we're frustrated, or we're afraid, or we're exhausted, and we just don't want to have to think about something. And a lot of times those decisions can be really bad, or they can at least have consequences that are hard for you. A great example of that is in driving. If you're driving and you're in a stress response, and somebody gets too close to you, and you get erratic in how you drive trying to deal with that, or the people around you, even worse, I guess, do that. That's where road rage comes from. Road rage is someone who got so fed up with something in life, or was having such a hard time with emotional regulation, that somebody does something as simple as just, pulling in front of them too close, and all of a sudden violence happens, because their brain has lost the ability to say, this response is not going to be worth what I would have to pay for it, just to have somebody, just to make it known that I did not like that somebody got cut in front of me too close. That entire ability to process information has changed. Now, people can cultivate the ability to process information better. Mindfulness isn't about becoming detached from life. It's about giving yourself enough space so that your nervous system can choose how you're going to respond. It's a power move, really. Mindfulness doesn't feel like a power move when you first start, because you're quiet. And sometimes you choose to back off rather than, you don't then take all comers kind of thing. But it's a power move because suddenly you're the one in control. Your emotions are no longer in control. Someone who may be either intentionally, or just the way you're responding to it, baiting you, trying to get a response out of you, is no longer in control, because you're able to take that extra few moments that it takes to decide, this is how I want to respond to something. So, we've talked about how the brain reacts, but let's go over it a little bit more. So reactivity narrows your perception. Things become all or nothing. They become either good or bad. There's no room in the middle for, this part was good, this part is bad. Things become either one side or the other, because that's just how the brain responds to things. Now, when you're emotionally regulated, though, when you're in a mindful state, when you're a calm state, the opposite happens. You're able to sit with something for a moment. So if someone says something, I can't think of anything really horrible that people could say, but if someone says something like, boy, those glasses look ugly on you. Well, instead of me going, wow, that really hurt. Wait, those glasses look ugly on you too, or you're no prize, or whatever. I can sit and I can think, okay, well, actually I like these glasses quite a bit. And if they're saying that to be mean, then I can just ignore that. Or maybe they see something I don't. And so then, rather than respond back or just get, kind of quiet and hurt about it, I can say, why did you say that? And then if they meant to be hurtful, they'll probably say something like, oh, I'm just, joking with you or something. Or they can say, I hate red glasses, or, whatever. Or if they meant it in some way that's actually not so cruel or caustic, they might have just said, I just think that that color's not great for your skin tone, or something like that, which would have been a nicer way to say it. But that way you're giving people a chance to kind of explain themselves. So when you're calm, you also get to see patterns. You can notice that every time, for example, somebody suddenly seems like they're very cranky with you, that they may have also had something to eat that doesn't agree with them. I've noticed this pattern not in an individual, but in individuals. Once I stopped having a lot of sugar, and I stopped specifically having sodas, because I realized that it actually made me cranky. The sugar affected my blood sugar in such a way that I was just about 10 minutes or less after I had something that was like a soft drink kind of product, I would get just really tense and cranky. So then I started watching when I went to restaurants, and I would see families come in with their kids, and the kids would be happy. Everyone's excited about having something to eat. Everything's wonderful. And then they would order their drinks, and sometimes when the kids would drink their drinks, all of a sudden, he hit me, she's touching me, I don't like this. Their moods would change. And I was able to see that because I wasn't in the same reaction that they were in. And instead of going, stupid kids, what are they doing? I was able to look at it and think, oh, those poor kids, they're very sensitive to sugar and they don't know it. And so they're having a reaction to things. And that then when, so if I for some reason had to interact with children I didn't know in a restaurant, I could be a little more calm. I could give them calm, and sometimes they could work with that, and it would, instead of setting them off further, it would give them a little bit of space to breathe. So that's the other nice thing that happens, is when you're able to have calm, you're able to share it with other people. Not everyone will be able to receive it, but sometimes, if you're in a line and you notice the person beside you in a line, or in front of you or behind you in a line, is starting to get really jumpy, you can take a breath. And you can say, it's really interesting to see how busy it is now. Or you can say something, or you can say, wow, look at that, look at those flowers, aren't they pretty, or something like that. And somebody who is responsive to it, you can make their day. You can change how their life works. They can suddenly be able to take a little turn. Now, if they just go, I'm just tired of waiting, well, then you can, check out. You don't have to keep talking to them. But you can share that calm. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to share today, is sharing calm is really important right now. Because if you've been on Facebook or any of the social media, you know that as often as not, one person says something, somebody else says something, and they may even be bots, they may not even be actual people, that is intended to bait, intended to cause a reaction. And then the initial person who may have not have had anything negative going on, they just made a factual comment, or a comment that didn't have any emotional weight to it, all of a sudden people who have no idea who they are, and some of them may not even be people, are going back and forth insulting each other's intelligence, or saying something about whether they're attractive or not, and just having really horrible insults back and forth. But if you're able to say something that's calming, or that's an interesting perspective, what do you mean by that? Well, if it's a bot, then they won't be able to respond. They'll just keep doing the same thing, just chee. Or if they're a person that's so emotionally unregulated that they're just not really interested, if they're a troll, when they're not interested in having any actual conversation, the same thing will happen. And then you just block them. You're done with them. They don't have to be part of your life anymore. But sometimes, I've actually seen this play out. Someone will say, well, actually, here's what I was thinking. And suddenly a discussion happens. Now, I actually try to avoid all of that, because on the internet, I don't find it helpful to do a lot of discussing anything with people about much of anything. If there's someone I know and then I'm sharing something, that's why I got on Facebook. I have, business things, but on Facebook, I'd like to interact with my friends. I'm not really that interested in interacting all that much with strangers. Sometimes I do on some of the different support group kind of things I do or I'm a part of. I don't do them for like gluten-free eating, things like that, to be helpful. But in general, we make our boundaries as we want to. And that's another part of mindfulness, is you can choose what you're going to engage with and what you aren't going to engage with. So what also happens is when you're in this reactive state, in addition to, it's kind of the obvious consequence of it, If you're in a reactive state and you're always having to react, you're always having to make a decision immediately, you don't give yourself the gift of just sitting, breathing, kind of seeing where you are in your world and in your thoughts, so that you have time to see what's happening kind of on the background of something that's going on in your life, then you end up making decisions. And a lot of times those decisions are not great. You end up, most people, the easiest version of that is people who may be trying to eat well, and then they get hungry, they don't plan ahead, or their plans go awry, something happens, and they need food and they don't have it, and their blood sugar goes down. And when your blood sugar is unregulated, then that need to eat is just intense, and so people get hangry. They have the emotional issues for that. So in that kind of setting, well, what can happen? One thing that can happen is you say something really hurtful to the people close to you just because you're in an extreme threat state. So you're making a decision to communicate something to somebody that may even be true. You may something that's been bothering you for weeks. You just suddenly spit out, I hate it when you do this, and that's not how it needed to be said. Or it may be nothing at all. It may just be you're angry, and then you yell at your children or your spouse or somebody like that, and you've done something harmful. Or, and this happens a lot, I treat a lot of people where we talk about this, you just grab something to eat, and sometimes it's completely off of your diet plan, and a lot of times even worse, it's something that you're very sensitive to, and so you end up feeling sick. I work with gluten-free, I eat gluten-free myself, and I work with people that eat gluten-free, and a lot of times they'll say that. They'll say, I was really hungry, I went to the restaurant, they had free bread, everyone else was eating it, and I just suddenly felt like, why should I have to be the one that doesn't get to eat this thing? So they ate the bread and then they were sick all night. And if they had been in a better state of regulation, if they had been able to sit still and take a minute and go, okay, I'm going into the restaurant. I know there's going to be bread. I don't want to eat the bread. I will either take something in with me that I can have a quick bite of just before I go in, or I will order something right away to drink, or I will order an appetizer right away, or I will just tough it out, but I'll know going in. I'll have already made the decision. I'll have had the mindfulness to make the decision. So having emotional regulation, where you are dealing with your emotions rather than them dealing with you, gives you the ability to make better decisions. So, what is one quick, easy kind of tool that you can do to be able to give yourself that little bit of a moment before you make a bad decision, or before you do something out of a stress response, or just to calm a stress response in general? One of the ones I like is just to take a really quick breath. Just to sit back and take a few breaths. I said quick breath, actually it's the other way around. We want to do a slow breath. So when you feel, and as you work on this, you'll start noticing earlier and earlier when you're in a stress response. It won't be when you're about to, explode that you notice it. You'll notice, ooh, my neck's getting kind of tense. Ooh, what's going on there? And so you'll be able to sit back, go, okay, I'm getting a little worked up now, so I'm going to sit back, and then just take 3 breaths. And sigh out a little more forcefully than you breathe in. That's a Chinese medicine trick. We call it helping qi stagnation, which is that stuck feeling. That sighing out just kind of helps your body to get that frustration feeling out of you. Now, there's lots of other things you can do, and we'll talk about some of those as we go. But as you do that, over time, you'll start noticing, oh, I'm taking that little bit extra time that I need to be able to take care of myself. And in the process of taking care of myself, I'm sharing a gift of a more peaceful being, a more peaceful way of being, a more peaceful presence with anybody that I come in contact with. And being able to share that peaceful presence instead of sharing that reactive stress response presence. If we all started doing that, if each person that heard this video started doing that, we're able to affect just one more person the same way, in time, all of these little Facebook nitpicky fights would be over. We would all have a much better ability to look at the things going on in our world and to be able to see them more clearly. We'd be able to make better decisions about everything in our life. And we would be able to be more friendly and more hopeful and more caring for each other. So emotional regulation is something that helps you in uncertain times. The emotional regulation is not weakness, it is power, it is leadership, it is the ability to be in control of yourself so that other people aren't tugging at your emotions all the time, aren't controlling you. And it'll actually really help you when it comes to buying big things like cars or things like that, because sales is based in trying to get you to react. So any book you read about sales, it talks about sales as emotion. And so that's why they try to up the ante and say that you have to do this in this period of time, or try to push you into making a decision before you have time to think. So taking time to think is taking your power back in a situation, whether it's a sales situation or an argument or a negotiation for something. It's taking your power back. It's giving you clarity. It gives you the ability to protect yourself and things and ideas and who you are, the things that matter to you, so that you're not looking back at a day of reactivity and realizing that was not who I wanted to be. It helps you to be able to be who you want to be. So, if you liked this video, please share it with a friend, please subscribe to the channel, and please just take a little bit of this sense of peace, of power, and of being able to be in a response mode rather than a stress response reactive mode, and take that into your day-to-day life. The more you practice this, the easier it will get and the more fun it gets, because you're able to enjoy your life more and you're not just kind of pulled and tugged by every little thing that happens to you. You can look at somebody who's having a bad day and actually help them out of their bad day instead of having them help you into a bad day yourself. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you for watching my video.